Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you very much for joining me here today. This is your one-stop shop for cryptocurrency analysis, among many other things. Now we're taking a look at KSM, which is considered Polkadot's wild cousin. And you'll see why they have that name here in just a moment. This is just a technical analysis. There's no fundamentals here. Feel free to include that in the comments below if you'd like to obviously help educate the group. But the bottom line here is we're just going to look at the technical charts, make sure we understand good entry point for you, and obviously identify best practice. I always like to bring that in all my videos, so if you're ready to learn here today, buckle up, we'll have some fun. Before we get started, I'm not a financial advisor. This is for educational purposes only. You should always do your own research. And if you are interested in acquiring signals, I have a signal group as well through my Patreon account, link in the description below. And also a fantastic Telegram community. Feel free to jump in there, get engaged, learn as much as you can. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and get right to it. All right, folks, let's go ahead and take a look at KSM. Before we do, we always look at Bitcoin and Ethereum first, just to get a baseline of the market so we know what's going on, and we'll get you a better understanding so you can make an informed decision, right? So let's take a look here now. First things first, before we look at KSM is Bitcoin. We're going to take a look at the 4-hour chart, and we're going to turn on our moving averages. So first of all, I always like to use the 200 and the 50-day moving average. This purple line here is the 200, and the yellow orangish line here is the 50. Now, these are helpful in the sense that the industry leaders are using these day by day, right? So if we can use the same thing, we're just going to be a lot more effective, a lot more successful, because we need to make sure we know what they're looking at because they control the market. So that's what they're looking at here. So long story short here is we got the 50-day moving average working as a support level. The price is above, as you can see here recently too. Take a look at this. So we got rejected 1, 2, 3, 4 4-hour candle bars. So 16 hours in a row we got the rejection, and the price broke through very hard and very fast. You'll see that happen a lot with moving averages. The price essentially does that. Right now we got this little consolidation phase for Bitcoin last 24 hours approximately. So we'll see what happens. It'll either break up or break down. Hopefully it breaks up and surpasses the 200-day moving average. That is the hope. Bear in mind we have a support level at 30,000. That was tested roughly twice over the past few weeks. But it was recently again. Of course, we know the price is very, very low, all things considered. So Bitcoin's very affordable right now. So it's a good place to buy if you haven't yet already. Moving forward as well, we got a 42,000 for a major resistance level. There's also smaller support and resistance levels. There's a 31,000 support and a 41,000 resistance. Okay, so there's something to note. But all in all, that's the state of the nation here for Bitcoin. Let's move on to Ethereum. Now, similar circumstance for Ethereum, only difference is Ethereum ramped back up a lot faster and harder because it's been driven down too far, right? So if we look at the RSI, you can see it's hovering down under 40. Usually when it's held down for a while under 45 essentially, then there's a breakout that occurs. It broke out above here as well, but it's also increasing too. So this is a good sign because Ethereum typically does very well when when Bitcoin goes sideways, right? Bitcoin's going sideways right now, whereas Ethereum is increasing. That's a normal Ethereum behavior. So I would say that it's gaining more market capitalization recently and kind of getting a lot of its previous customers back, if you want to call them customers, right? So bottom line here is Ethereum's back on track. It's increased fairly well. I think it's up 15% on the day. So we're looking good here for Ethereum, but major support level is about 1,700 and a major resistance is 2,900. Bear in mind this 2,900 has been tested about 10 times. So just something to note. But all in all, even though RSI is coming up here for Ethereum, it's still in very good shape. I think it'll continue to increase if we can get Bitcoin to keep going sideways and or increase, right? If we can get an increase from Bitcoin up to about 42,000 and break that resistance level, we're going to be looking to be in very good shape. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at KSM, and we always look at the one-day chart first on these just to kind of see where we're at. Now, as you can tell here, KSM got hit real hard recently. So let's take a quick peek. Let's actually look at some of the more important dates for Bitcoin, the sell-off dates for Bitcoin. I like to look at that to kind of see how this reflects on this chart here. So the 17th of April, first of all, was the first major sell-off. So we got a green candle here on the 17th, but it tapered off the day after. It's pretty standard. The 22nd also another sell-off point for Bitcoin, and then the 25th things came back as we see here. All right, so that's kind of normal. And then we'll go and look at May 12th. Let's see here. May 12th is the first Elon candle. Looks like fake news doesn't impact KSM all that much. It actually increased contrary to the fake news from well, Tesla. I guess it wasn't fake news, of course, but that really didn't impact this here in that sense, because Tesla pulling out of accepting Bitcoin didn't matter for KSM. And then let's see here, as far as the 19th, yep, we can see that that's the China candle there. Holy cow, look at that. Imagine being in there at this point. You got in at 617 and it went down to 460. That's a 74% decrease. That's tough. That would have been probably a very, very hard day for a lot of folks. So hopefully you weren't holding at that point, but if you are, hopefully you can average down by perhaps investing now, because even though the price is up significantly on the day, we still look like we have a lot of room for growth here. But if you see here, of course, obviously that was the largest impact here. Most of the other stuff was kind of standard behavior. But if you can see here, the average true range for KSM is somewhere in the range of 303 upwards of about 483. So with the price being down about 221 right now, that's still very affordable just looking at the one-day chart alone. Okay. Furthermore, RSI is still extremely oversold. And then, of course, we got the MACD attempting to swing upwards here on the one-day chart. We'll likely have seen that on the 4-hour chart swing through with that convergence, but generally speaking, it's a good time to buy as far as just being a swing trader, long-term trading. This would essentially be a good value just based on these numbers alone. Also note too, the price is under the 200 and the 50-day moving average, both good signs on the one-day chart. 4-hour chart. These moving averages I feel are more effective than the 4-hour chart, so I prefer to use these here. And the great news as well is that the price is now above the 50-day moving average. That's fantastic. You can tell here too, you see how long this candle is here in this 4-hour time frame? It's no surprise it broke through that major resistance of the 50 and is holding now as a support. So oftentimes you'll see the support and resistance levels, the 200 and the 50 more specifically, get broken really fast. In other words, it goes through here a lot quicker and it's like a larger candle anytime there's a moving average. RSI is pretty good. We got the MACD kind of pretty standard here. You see the MACD, it didn't actually have a chance to converge because of the fact that the price has stayed over on the oscillator here. So generally speaking, those are all good signs on the 4-hour chart, pretty much telling us that we got some pretty good momentum here. And the increase in price too, if we look in the last, 24 hours alone, we're upwards of about 36% at its highest. So all in all, pretty good price action for KSM here. Let's look at the 1-hour chart to kind of identify the Ichimoku cloud, see what's going on here. I'll just turn off this noise here. And this is interesting too. Look at that. Look at that sharp increase here as well. That's right where the 50-day moving average intersected. Look at this here. Actually, I'll turn it back on. I'll show you. Right here, let's go ahead and mark this. That's where the 50-day moving average came through. In fact, we'll mark that a little bit better. Right there. And if we take a look at the 1-hour chart, you see these long candles? That's telling us that it broke through. So here's the cool thing about the cloud. It kind of gives you a little heads up in the fact that there's a good chance that you're going to be able to get ahead of that curve. In other words, right here, if you take a look, right where the cloud comes above, that tells us right there that we're looking pretty good. In other words, when the Ichimoku cloud is broken and when the price is above, that tells us it's a buy signal. If it's below, it's considered a sell signal. Right? And if it's in the cloud, you basically don't touch it. But just say you'd shorted right here, you would have got a decent chunk. Inverse applies here as well. When you're going long, if you jump in right as soon as the cloud breaks above, again on the 1-hour chart, this is essentially a good buy signal. So commonly you'll see that as a good buy signal. And coincidentally, right here, it broke through the 50-day moving average on the 4-hour chart. So these are both really good signs here. So we got two nice support levels, so to speak, on the 1-hour, but furthermore, just generally speaking, we're looking at some really good price action here for KSM. All right, so let's look at the 15-minute chart here. And the EMA and VWAP lines, I'm going to go ahead and enable that. Now let's go ahead and clear this out. Now, to clarify, what I use the EMA and VWAP lines here. So if you're new to the channel and you're not familiar with this, EMA is essentially the exponential moving average. That's this red line here. Now I color it red. It could be different colors, of course, and you'll notice it's normally about a 9 and a 20. Right? Those are the two normal ones that you'll get by default on your charts. But for me, what I look for is the 15. I switched it over to the 15, so there's only 1 instead of 2, which is very helpful. But the bottom line here is that if you see the price, see how the price is bouncing off EMA? So bounces here, bounces here, bounces there. It's potentially bouncing right now as well, so if it can stay above, we might see a continuation of this bull run. But what I'm trying to get at here is that the EMA is a very helpful indication. It's similar to the MACD, right? Because the MACD has a 12 and a 26 that are converging and diverging all the time. This is nice because it just lays it out right on top of your price action. So you know if the price is bouncing off of it, then the bulls are in control. Okay. Furthermore, we got the VWAP line. That's this blue line here. So that's the volume weighted average price. And what that is, that basically tells us the price expressed, correction, yeah, the volume expresses a price. In other words, it takes the last 24 hours of volume, expresses it as a price. So in the last 24 hours, we've seen the price should be about 204, whereas it's upwards of 222. So there's a reason why the price came down here, because that deviation is too high. So when you got a standard deviation of over 10%, it's up at about 13 at that point, it wants to come back down. Because again, the price is overinflated for that short amount of time frame, and it needs to come back down and retrace itself. It may not come all the way down, but it might go sideways for a little while. And here's another indication of a good bull run. If you kind of take a look at this here, do you see how these lines, in other words, look at this right here, where we got this line here, this line here, this line here. So in other words, we've got 3 periods of consolidation in between these strong bull runs, strong increases, right? So that's a fantastic thing to identify. So as soon as you can identify that, just say you've seen this consolidation followed by this next ramp up, this would be an awesome place to enter, because the best bull runs you can ever find and identify, the kind of the sleepers, so to speak, aren't the ones that shoot straight up in a matter of minutes. They're the ones that increase like this perpetually, but they have a staircase pattern. Up, over, up, over, up, over. These are my favorite types of bull runs to identify and to try to jump in and get on top of. So I'm going to set my alerts here to make sure to kind of see if this continues for my signal group, but I can tell you that this is a pretty good sign. Another thing to note as well, and this is part of my indication that I have for my EMA and VWAP notification. Because for me, if you're new to the channel, just to clarify, I'm a big fan of the EMA and VWAP lines on the 15-minute chart specifically. And what I look for is confirmation, because you want to have confirmation that the price is going in the direction you want to head, right? You want to make sure that your price is going where you want to go, right? So if the bulls are in control, you want to make sure to take a long position. You don't try to short against the odds, right? So if the house is essentially moving upwards in a long position, then you want to get on board. Now, to identify a good entry point, instead of trying to chase the bottom, I like to look for confirmation. And to me, confirmation is EMA and VWAP, the price action being above EMA and the VWAP lines. And not just being above, but being above for 30 minutes or longer. So if you see this consolidation period, right, it's kind of state of indecision, not quite sure if it wants to go up or down. You see how it starts to break up right here? Do you see these 2 solid green bars? That's 30 minutes of confirmation, right? So that's 30 minutes confirmation telling us the price is heading in that direction. So I look for this every time, and you see this little yellow line here. This tells you that this is essentially an indication. So this is the indication I have built into this this indicator, of course, and this is available through my Patreon account, of course, if you'd like to consider subscribing. But what I'm getting at here is the bottom line is that when the price is increasing and you have 30 minutes confirmation, that's the case in point to get in. So for me, I always look for this. So this would be a buy signal for me. I'd probably get in right here. And then I would continue to wait to see how the price responds to the EMA and VWAP lines. Right? So you see it comes up, goes sideways for a while. No big deal. It's all good. Even when it comes down, no big deal. See how it passes the EMA, but it bounces off the VWAP lines? That's an indication of a bull run, right? Okay, so it's still in control. Coming up, we see the same thing happen again, only with the EMA lines right here. So those are all good things. So until this line breaks below the EMA and comes down and tests and rejects and comes below the VWAP line, I would likely still continue to hold this position. Okay. Now there's a good chance the price could come down to the VWAP line and test that again, based on it being overextended for the moment. But if we get some more sideways action and the price just continues to go sideways for a little while longer, it will likely continue to break upwards if the bulls are still in control. Again, as long as this EMA line is staying below. Okay. So again, just something to pay attention to here. So for lack of better terms, that's kind of what I like to always educate in my videos, help make sure that you understand how these two things can be very beneficial and helpful. Because we're getting these signals here. We got these 2 solid green bars. You got to pay attention to that. You got to take entry at the right time. Don't try to take entry when you got a consolidation period here, when the price is right in the EMA and VWAP lines, or if it's below. It's not an indication of a buy signal. This is an indication of a buy signal when the price is above both EMA and VWAP. All right. Now, big picture here, let's just go ahead and go with a prediction, because I know I'd mentioned that in the title. I want to make sure you guys kind of feel comfortable with that, because what we got to look at here, of course, is where the price action was for the longest, right? So even though it came plummeting down here recently, and the China candle drove it down as well, we are looking at an average true range of about 300 upwards of about maybe 450. So 221, 223, I still think that's a very good value for something like this, because you could easily, 1.5 or 2 times your position, depending on your entry and your exit strategy, right? Just don't get greedy, don't hold on for too long, because obviously this is susceptible to Bitcoin sell-offs. So pay attention to that. If Bitcoin comes down past 30,000, you'd want to consider exiting your position. Because that's a big, big red flag. Because I think Bitcoin was down closer to about 30,000 in this range here. So obviously there was something that happened, but as you can tell, it has peaks and valleys too. So if it continues to ramp up and come up, and just say it comes back up to 450 to 500, then you want to probably consider exiting your position, because it shouldn't, and I don't believe it will, continue to stay that high for that long. Just based on its history and how tumultuous it is. This looks like the Rocky Mountains, not a nice, smooth little hill that is more safe and secure, right? So just keep that in mind. The more jagged spikes you see here, the more volatility, which is potentially a good thing for day trading, but for swing traders, this can be treacherous. Just be cautious of that. And if you are just say day trading, keep in mind, look for good entry point above EMA and VWAP line. You want to have 30 minutes of confirmation above that. Now, if you find benefit from this, please consider liking and subscribing. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this. Feel free to join my Patreon account as well. As I'd mentioned before, I do have Signal Group available in that to allow for you to find good entry points throughout the week. I send out 3 to 5 signals per week just to make sure that you're staying on top of your game, because I have more time to be able to look at these entry points and to find good best practice, so to speak. Whereas a lot of my my members, they don't really have the opportunity to be able to watch this all day. So hopefully I can help you with that. Feel free to reference that. The first is always the best time to register, just based on the way that Patreon has their billing cycle. Either way, thanks so much for your time. We'll look forward to seeing you next video. Y'all have a great rest of your day. I'll see you soon.